All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy 420, the time, not the date. And welcome to today's C-Lab webinar. My name is Vien Trin, and I'm the Product and Growth Marketing Manager for Flourish Software. And I'll be moderating today's discussion, which is the tech that drives 420. A little bit about myself, if you didn't hear it earlier, but I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. I entered the cannabis industry professionally after the state went rec in 2020. I've been on both the retail side of the house and the Canatech side of the house. And now I reside in sunny San Diego, where the weather doesn't go from 75 to 30 in 24 hours. So a little bit happier here, a little bit more of a tan, miles all around. So thanks for having us today. Robert Friedman, thank you for having us here today. We're going to introduce the panel. So we have three seasoned veterans coming from all the way from California to Florida. I'd like to introduce them and give them a couple minutes to speak about themselves and their products. So the first person I'd like to introduce is Miss Jocelyn Sheltraw. Needs no introduction on the West Coast, I'll tell you that for sure. But she is the co-founder and CEO of Buddhist. Buddhist is the industry's first social review platform for cannabis products and brands. And prior to Buddhist, she spent 5 years as the head of industry relations at Headset, which is a leading data and analytics provider for cannabis operators. So welcome, Jocelyn.
Thank you. Thank you. You summarized that wonderfully for me.
I tried to do my best. Anything else you want to mention about your company? A little bit more about Buddhist?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we're stoked. We launched Buddhist not too long ago. We launched it in both the Apple and Google Play stores early December, and we're in beta as, most people go through that process for several months. And so we publicly debuted the company in early March during Hall of Flowers. Along with the announcement that our team of Buddhists are going to be the judges for the California State Fair this year, which is huge that we have a state-sanctioned cannabis competition in the first place. But for those who aren't familiar, Buddhist is our industry's first social review platform that's dedicated solely to brands and products. So if you think about a TripAdvisor or a Yelp or a Rotten Tomatoes, we took bits and parts of all of those apps, our favorite aspects of those apps, and combined them and built them into Buddhist. And the app allows for both professional critics as well as consumers to come in, assess products using the 100-point system and sharing all of their feedback and their insights on those products.
Very cool, very cool. I said congratulations on the launch. I saw, just the keyword is saw a bunch of pictures of the launch party at Hall of Flowers, but looked amazing. And congratulations. I already joined the program, joined the app, and yeah, it's very, very, very cool interface so far. Thanks, Jocelyn. All right. Next, I'd like to introduce is Mo Afana, excuse me. Yes, the COO of BioTrack. He is a trained pharmacist with over a decade of experience in the cannabis industry and has been with BioTrack since 2013. I'm sure many of our audiences is familiar with BioTrack, which has government traceability contracts throughout the United States and is currently actively operating in 8 different countries. So, Mo, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel. I think you did a wonderful introduction. I don't think there's too much more to add beside, happy to help support the Florida market and been part of the grassroots process here since day one, and happy to kind of see it continue into adult use.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be touching on that at the end when it comes to looking at the future of cannabis, not only in Florida but in the industry entirely. But last but not least, I'd like to introduce my CEO. A little bit biased. He's the one that signs my paychecks, but here he is today. He's started his career helping modernize dozens of retailers like Finish Line, Napa Auto Parts, and the Container Store for an omni-channel supply chain. And in 2017, he applied those skills to build Flourish Software. We are a leading provider of vertically integrated supply chain seed-to-sale software, where our model is to see our clients grow, sell, scale, and flourish. So, Colton,
Thanks,
want to
man.
talk a little more?
Thanks for hosting. No, really excited to be here. We love working in the Florida market, and we touch every aspect of the cannabis supply chain, even though I think today is going to be mostly focused on retail. A lot of our business is helping brands get to market, involving cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, and all the flavors of what that looks like across the various state markets across the United States. So work with the BioTrack team in the states that we're co-deployed in as a state track and trace system, and yeah, lots of fun stuff to talk about today. I'm a tech person and like getting into all things tech.
Awesome, awesome. So, thanks again. We're excited for this panel today. For the audience, we have about 4 or 5 questions that we're going to go over, and how it's going to go is we're going to have read out the question. Then we'll have the panelists about 3 to 5 minutes each to answer the question, and then we'll go on to the next one. So first question is going to be about 420 that just happened last weekend. In the military, I was in the military about 15 years ago. Don't want to date myself too bad, but the saying was fail to plan, plan to fail. A lot about preparation when he does missions. And so what I like to ask is a 3.5 part question, but it's when it comes to your technology, how did you use your technology for your customers and for yourself to plan for 420? What did you do to execute during the holiday rush for 420 with your tech? And how did you use your tech to know if your 420 was successful? What were those KPIs? What does success look like for your organization? And that point five question is any takeaways from next year. So you know what? I'm going to start out with Mo. Mo, please, BioTrack and all these.
Sure. Thank you. So I think, how do we plan for 420? Obviously, as we're leading up to it, we're working with our customers to kind of help them zero in on what products they should have on the shelf, what's like high profit margins, making sure whatever's in the pipeline is kind of staged and ready to get to the stores on time, and really just kind of helping them focus on, where do they get the most bang for their buck. In terms of like how we execute, there's a lot of kind of touch points leading up to 420, and really pretty much by the time we get to that Monday of the week, we don't want to actually touch anything. We want everything essentially in place and staged, and they're ringing the register. How do we use our tech like to help them be successful? So we have a Canalytics tool that's kind of sits on top of BioTrack. It helps them slice and dice their data. They can see kind of profitability. They can look and see kind of what is the turnover time on like plants until they get them to a finished good state, and helping them kind of like understand that to better manage their inventory and their supply chain so they are ahead of the curve and they're not kind of scrambling at the last minute. I think the biggest takeaway, honestly, was they underestimated maybe their sales. I saw that in a lot of locations where they sold through all their flowers. So, one of the things we're going to kind of push for next year is whatever you think the number is, let's add an additional multiplier to that and make sure that you aren't selling out before the end of the holiday.
I need to take myself off mute. So thank you, Mo. Great answer. Appreciate that. I mean, a lot of companies are still on BioTrack running from a point of sale standpoint too. So when I was over at Nature's Care Company out in Illinois, we ran on that. So very familiar with your technology. So thanks a lot. We'll go now to Jocelyn. Jocelyn, please.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, for us, as I just mentioned, Buddhist, we launched the app not too long ago. And so for 420, obviously for us, what we're focused on is driving more of our Buddhists, meaning our critics who are actually assessing brands and products, and then continuing to have consumers come in and review, as well as adding in new brands and products to the app. A big part of the problem that we're trying to solve from the consumer standpoint is just giving information on all of these different products that exist. And if you think about other holidays outside of 420, I'm going to use Mother's Day as an example. Like if you're trying to find a restaurant to go to take your mom for Mother's Day, you're probably going to go on Yelp or you're going to go on Google and you're going to find, okay, what are all the requirements that I'm looking for in a restaurant? And then you're going to search for those, and find the best restaurant for you. Well, in cannabis, it's interesting because we don't really have that yet, right? Like we don't have any dedicated place where both consumers can go to understand about these products and also contribute their own feedback on these products. Obviously, we have things like Leafly and Weed Maps and Jane where people can go submit reviews. But those are byproducts of the platforms. It's not necessarily a place that consumers understand. That's where I'm going to go to learn about products. And so what we're focused on is really just continuing to build out that database because we launched in California. And so the long-term vision is that as you're logging into the app, and if you're at point of sale in a dispensary, you can then be seeing, okay, well, what are other people in my community rating these products? You can find like-minded individuals that may have similar preferences as you. And our thesis is that that's going to be a better recommendation for someone if you know more about that individual reviewer. So I share that because that's really the problem that we're trying to solve. Like, how do consumers understand this vast product landscape that exists and then find the best products for their needs. And we just haven't yet seen that in the industry that's solely focused on solving this problem. And so by next 420, when I answer this question, then we'll be able to share a lot of interesting data about how people were actually using this at the point of sale. But for now, we're seeing a lot of that information just being shared on social and people contributing and really building out the community.
Yeah, thanks, Jocelyn. As I mentioned, I joined recently. I followed the Jossie Vossi, which is you, and I follow Albunto too. So love to see that there are California focused brands on there, and what you're doing to really help with that product education so far. So looking forward to
Stay
seeing what
tuned,
happens
Florida.
next quarter. What's that?
Exactly. We'll be launching market by market
Yeah.
toward the end of the year. And so Florida, stay tuned because we know there's a vast product landscape there, and just these brands and products deserve to have, a place where people can really go and celebrate them, and kind of taking a page from the wine industry, right? You think about how consumers decide what wines they want. A lot of that is done through a scoring system. They see, oh, 95 points from Robert Parker. Okay, I can understand why I'm going to pay this price point for this product. And I think that's a big problem that a lot of the brands are struggling with, is just this race to the bottom pricing, because consumers don't understand the differences between all of these products.
I see a lot of similarities in the cannabis space with when the cannabis space and also the craft beer space. So, in Illinois, we have a very, very big craft beer scene, and a lot of it is word of mouth, but then getting people to understand like the value of that taste. It's not just you can go out and buy hams, you can go out and buy go buy Pabst Blue Ribbon. No offense if anyone drinks hams or PBR, but if you want to spend a little bit more money on that that barrel aged beer, getting that word of mouth, and then getting that understanding, and then getting the product to the individual is really a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you, Jocelyn. Anything else you want to add for now? No, good.
Oh, well, no, I'll just build up really quickly. I'll just build off
Okay.
that point. So using the beer example or the wine example, these are products that have an incredible amount of nuance to them.
Mhm.
And this is one of the reasons we feel very strongly that using the 100-point system, like other commodities or other special goods, whether it's wine, beer, coffee, tea, they all have some platform in place that people go. They're all using the 100-point system to assess the quality of these products. And again, that's really, I think, been a missing piece for us in the industry. And if you look at the history of wine, it wasn't until in the early 1980s when you had Robert Parker, who created the 100-point wine system, Wine Advocate, where he was tracking all of his tasting notes. It wasn't until that point then you started to see the market develop in terms of consumers understanding this product landscape. Therefore, then the prices for all these products started to increase. And that's when premiumization happened.
Yeah.
And so that's when then you started to see sommeliers come about and that program getting built out. Then you see, all the publishers, Wine Spectator, Venice, et cetera, et cetera. And the market really started to develop because consumers had more of an understanding of the nuances of these products. And so I just if anything that you can take away from what I'm saying today is I think that what our industry needs is really that level of consumer education by utilizing technology to be able to help people have more nuanced conversation, understand about all these products. And there's a lot we can take from whether it's beer or wine or other industries. It's just very nascent for us. And so I think we're going to start to see a lot of really fun things pop up and emerge that are modeled after those other industries.
Well, I'm excited to see it. I'm sure our audience is too, but very, very cool. Thank you, Jocelyn. And last but not least for this question here, Colton, Fleur Software.
Yeah, I love the saying fail to plan to fail. I think according to my LinkedIn feed on Saturday, there was quite a number of people that may have benefited from writing that down ahead of the week across the country. Technology is such an integral part of running a dispensary or retail store in the cannabis space. It's integral broadly in e-commerce and in retail, no matter what you're selling. But with the cannabis landscape, I find, our customers facing 10 to 20 different SaaS applications, all vying for their time, attention, and dollars to help sort of execute and plan and analyze and optimize their experience of running a retail store. It's a little overwhelming, and it's kind of crazy when we look at our integration landscape and building out that technology stack in whatever market we're in, trying to wade through this decision of this app or that app and how do they talk to each other and who owns it, how much does it cost, and all the logins. So please use a password manager if you don't have a password manager. So Vian can say that I enforce that around our company because we also use a lot of tech to make the tech happen. From a planning perspective, I think, and I'd love to hear a little bit more from you, even Jocelyn, from your background with Headset, planning your assortment and your safety stock, like Mo mentioned, ahead of a big spike is both an art and a science, right? And planning your discounting is definitely an art and a science. I know in Florida, it's a very heavy discount market every day of the week, from what I understand. I don't live there, but we do support Certera and run all their POSs run on Flourish. And I know we had to build a Ferrari of a discount engine to stay competitive in this market. And so, like scheduling those discounts ahead of time, things we look at for technology, just kind of running through in a UAT or a testing environment, validating that the discounts are playing correctly, validating that the baskets are coming out as you need, looking at that margin analysis to make sure that, if you're giving 60% off discounts, you're still, leaving some room to make a little bit of a profit, or really thinking through all the scenarios of what you're pushing. Can you give away the promo units to get the basket size to a certain amount, and then make sure your margin makes up for the discounting on volume. That's where the technology I think really comes into play. Is really getting precise with this, and then planning, and running those scenarios and testing it and running the numbers, in Excel or offline. I think, looking at your consumer trends, going up to the holiday, or brands you're trying to launch or promote or sell through. There's a lot of interesting data companies out there to do that. We have a partner called Flywheel that built an application on top of our API. They kind of commercialize that out of a large distribution business. And this sits between retail and wholesale, and it looks at sell-through rates and reorder points, and it helps people like not stock out and can push an order into our software for distribution to replenish that store. And I think when I look at the best operators in this space, they are really using data and making sure that data is well structured and normalized, and and then using that to like track performance and optimize that. I don't know what dominate this question with too long of an answer, but that's just the planning piece. Executing is a whole other thing, right? Think about check-in speed. I was at the dispensary at 9 o'clock in the morning to get my $100 of free goodie bag because we all know 420 is the best time to get the deals. And
Yeah.
you had 100 people online, so queue management. I was a little surprised at our local dispensary and how they were using a POS that's typically fast to check out on, but let's just say the checkout speed was not fast. And I don't think everyone that was running that store was trained properly on how to do it. For instance, like, using a loyalty point or something, like it was like a question. I was like, we're 30, 40 people have checked out in front of me. Like why is your staff not trained properly on how to use this system? And it's making this line, excessively long, right? And we know some people are willing to wait in line and other people are not. And so that throughput is really important. It's cool they had a DJ up, so it kind of kept people entertained. After you bought, you could turn your ticket in and get a donut, get a cup of coffee. So, like some of these sort of tools are non-technical, but training is just so critical. And I think when we saw certain technology issues in this around the country, we have a customer that was not using our point of sale, whose point of sale went down in their 17 stores from noon until mid-afternoon, and then really through 6 p.m. before they got fully up and running. And not having a paper-based fallback system that was trained on and planned for was definitely a large hit. And so, you know, what happens if the power goes out? What happens if a car wrecks into the transformer next door and suddenly it's just you that's down, right? I mean, these things can happen outside of your vendor going down.
So
You
what
know,
would you say would be like, the success? Like, how do we measure success? How would we measure success as a company for 420? Or how, what were some takeaways that you would take from those experiences that you had at the dispensary? Cool.
success is it's you know it's well there's two measures. There's one ultimate measure is how much profit did you make for the day, right? That's the ultimate measure of success.
Mhm.
I think if you're a new store and you use this as your new opening, which people do all over the country, then your measure of success is like how many of those people that shopped at your store came back 3 months from now.
Mhm.
And did you have a loyalty system and a way to track that, or did you forget that that was an important piece of retaining your customer? And you know, using technology to track that attribution and see if that customer repeats that sale. Boom, that could be your measure of success. So one of those two, depending on you know where you're at,
Yeah.
is probably the name of the game here.
For sure, for sure. I mean, repeat customers is what everyone's looking for, right? The whole loyalty system is to get people to rebate, repeat, come back to your stores. A lot of stores sell the same products, unless you're Florida, right? Florida, where you're vertically integrated, you're only selling your own product. But being able to have people come back and forth, the loyalty piece is extremely important for customer retention. So, uh, next question we have. So, thank you, Colin. Thank you, Jocelyn. Mo. Second question, number two. My first job in cannabis tech, interviewed, and they're like, "Hey, what do you know about API?" And I said, I'm an Asian Pacific Islander. What else do I need to know? That is not what API stands for, everyone. API stands for Application Programming Interface. And what that is an external facing application that allows two systems to talk to each other. So this question is going to be about leveraging APIs for your technology and what integrations are crucial. So, Jocelyn, we're going to run it back to you. But, we talk about product education. And so, I'm sure that you're still in beta, but how are you going to get these app users from product education to purchase? What APIs are you use? What kind of integrations are you talking about over there?
Well, 100%. Oh my gosh, this has been like a very big, as you guys all know, like this is such a massive problem in our industry. And I'm going to take a
Yeah.
step back from your
Mhm.
question and explain what our biggest challenge has, not our biggest challenge, but certainly one of the biggest for us is launching a new business that requires us having clean data and
Yeah.
understanding all of the products out there and not having, 40 different names for Blue Dream, for example. No one in this industry has really solved this problem yet. Having normalized product data for us, when everything that we're doing, being able to log into the app and pull up any product that exists, and especially as new products are coming to market, that's a really complicated problem to solve. At
Mhm.
Headset, we had a team of 14 Kenyans. We were using Somasource, and they're just normalizing product data all day long. And that's a really big undertaking because again, like we just don't have some standardized, I know Metric is trying to solve this. I know you guys at BioTrack are solving this, but
Mhm.
nobody's really figured this out. We've personally integrated with several different APIs and that we were hoping that this problem wouldn't be as big of a problem and that we would be able to have, just one name as someone's coming into the app and searching for that product. And that just wasn't the case. The data was way too messy. It made for a really poor user experience. So we had to take that API out and we're manually entering products into the platform at this point so that it's a better user experience. I'm keeping in mind that as the industry evolves, this problem will naturally solve itself. However, I think back to conversations that I was having with many of you guys and other people that founded point of sale companies like 6 years ago, and it still remains just as challenging of a problem. So for us, we're looking to solve that. So if, Colton and Mo, if you guys have like this on lock, then we want to talk and we want to integrate. But that's just where it's at. So for us, like that unfortunately is a problem that we're still trying to figure out how to solve. And there's just not, a sound solution to date.
Well, I appreciate the honesty, the candor right there, Jocelyn. And well, Mo, similar question, but again, BioTrack being one of the oldest tech companies in the cannabis space with seed to sale software, but now you not only have one point of sale, but you have 2 point of sales to work with, right? With Always as well. So as the COO, excuse me, of the company, I'd like to know what kind of API integrations do you feel are crucial to your tech stack and to your customers?
So I think there's a level of sophistication that has evolved within the marketplace. And, you know, there aren't too many more kind of new emerging markets. Obviously, New York is on the horizon, but, you know, in a way that has kind of been there. And what we're seeing is we're seeing a shift. At first, a lot of companies were like, we want one POS, full vertical software solution to solve all of our problems. I think that the mentality has kind of shifted to let's pick best in breed, like what is good for cultivation, what is good for manufacturing, what's good for distro. And what we're seeing is more, let's call medium to large size companies are leveraging a whole suite of APIs. Almost there's like a translation layer out there, and there's a couple of companies that are doing that. But I think what's key is like figuring out how to develop a seamless process for the end user, right? Where data's flowing between their different systems, you know, because some people are at warehouse management software. So how do we leverage like the data in a way that makes it easy to flow between different systems, and you have a level of standardization to Jocelyn's point, right? That is a problem, right? And I think that the biggest thing that I've seen as a challenge is a lot of organizations have a lot of business people that are like, we want to see it do this. They don't have the technology background, and they don't realize the level of effort associated with making it do that type of dance or those backflips that they want to see it do. So I think the APIs exist. I think what's really missing is a level of subject matter expertise that understands what they're looking at from a data perspective. They can take in the feedback from, you know, the business team that says, this is what we want to achieve. Here's all our tech. How do we do that, right? You know, I think it's pretty standard right now in the market that everybody has some level of API or integration capability. But I think that piece that I'm touching on, which is like, how do we harmonize all these systems and how do we actually achieve what we want? I've worked with a lot of larger operators that, you know, have gone down the path of an ERP and an SAP flavored system. And, you know, the request coming from their business team or their accounting team becomes too onerous. And they go from being a cannabis company to being a software company. And they're like, hold on, what are we doing here? So I think there's still some ground to be kind of achieved there around the right kind of fit of those puzzle pieces between different technology providers. And this is everything, right? From e-com to CRM to whatever else you're doing. And I think that puzzle is still being solved. You know, just to touch on kind of what Jocelyn was saying about the standardization of products, I think that the biggest challenge is
Mo, you still there?
there's a little bit of difference between the states and the rules around.
You guys having a little bit of feedback over there too? Mo,
It's
Mo, can you hear us?
fading out a little bit.
Business law.
All right. Hey, Mo, you're fading out a little bit on your end. Okay. Well, what we're going to do is Mo, when you're able to come back, please join us. I can't hear you right now, but you know, I'm going to jump to Flourish here right now. So, like, you know, as we mentioned, Flourish, we are a vertically seeded integrated software, and we have integrations with QuickBooks to Alpine IQ. But you know, like Colton, same question that I asked Mo. You know, what do you feel are the most important APIs that we have for our tech stack and for our customers?
Yeah, I mean, we spend a lot of time on this topic. It's one of the things we've heavily invested in for years, right? I think we launched our API on top of our platform for our customers to leverage and build on top of and hook things together, probably in either 2019 or 2000, probably 2019. So with our goal being full coverage over the application as much as possible, right? Post, puts, gets, you can fetch data out of the system, but also put data in. And there are some challenges I think Mo was getting at with the state track and trace systems around the dance we have to do with making sure that data flows seamlessly up to those systems. And I do want, if he pops back on here, want to compliment BioTrack for their ability to offer on the state side an API that actually covers the entire track and trace system. There he is.
Welcome back. All right, while he's connecting.
Because the ability to stitch together best in class solutions around your budtender training app, your in-store display app, your e-commerce app, your loyalty app, your maybe your payroll and labor planning, your core inventory management, your POS, the state track and trace, the check-in experience. All these things are using APIs or webhooks, which is ideal as well to get that real-time responsiveness. And if you're not leveraging that, you're definitely putting a lot of human hours to retyping data in the same place. Mo, I was giving you guys compliments. I love that, deploying in the BioTrack states, we actually can do everything on the state side with the API, which is actually just allows so much flexibility and freedom for the business to run without having to jump into other, and like unlike metric states and have to jump into a metric interface and do complete the work there. You can actually just receive and transfer and stay compliant, fully via the API.
And actually, that's where I'm going. I mean, Colton, you got a great. Oh, sorry if I interrupted you.
Oh no, I was just going to say, just on the data normalization for sure is the other challenge. I mean, as we look to stitch together wholesale and retail and in-app, and I always encourage our customers to invest in their own analytics and pull the data out via the API. And I say, like, we can provide really awesome analytics within our product, but maybe you want to marry that with your Google Analytics and your loyalty system and some sort of flat file and some other data source that we don't even know about. And so we're hopefully months away from trying to get some more open sourceness around data, like item identification, and helping solve that, and very, very eager to collaborate with anybody who's interested in doing it. It is a big challenge. It's one of the things. And you've seen me do lots of demos. I generally say,
Yeah.
like, the biggest piece of our implementation process is implementing standardization around your naming conventions, and we really put a lot of focus on that, followed by the API. I'd say the two things that I think of first every time I'm thinking about technology is, like, how well is the data structured, and how can you get it in and out of the system? Everything else can kind of fall into place.
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Colton. And as you had mentioned, BioTrack, welcome back, Mo. And the next question is
Thank you.
actually going to be right about BioTrack. So, next 420, looking forward ahead, right? BioTrack will be Florida's new state track and trace system. Now, prior to BioTrack, the state relied on the operators to self-report, except for that final retail sale that was reported to the Medical Marijuana Use Registry, the MMUR. But upon its launch, the implementation of BioTrack is going to function as the state's reporting tool with an API that doesn't require a direct login to the BioTrack STS, state traceability system. Mo, I'd love for you again. Thank you for everything that you guys have done already, but I'd like to discuss what should we expect from this system for our Florida vertically integrated retailers once this is implemented.
Sure. So as of today, I think there's 6 MMTCs fully integrated. I think our goal was to try to keep this as simple as possible while allowing the dispensaries to kind of continue to operate the way they have been. Now, with any kind of state level system, there's a level of governance that kind of comes into play that allows the state to kind of measure apples to apples and oranges to oranges. But we are hoping that this also creates some added efficiencies. So the ability to have integrated test results. No longer do you have to manually enter those results and worry about data entry issues. Once a sample gets results, it'll automatically show up attached to the parent or to the sublots. The ability to transfer inventory between systems, like, so inventory comes across, they don't have to worry about misnaming or accidentally categorizing things incorrectly. The system will kind of handle all that information for them, and it'll also give them more visibility onto kind of like what's happening. This will also alleviate probably some cost burden that the MMTCs are covering right now with the MMUR integration, because we're essentially passing the sales information directly via API into MMUR. So, our goal is to try to make this as seamless as possible and create some efficiencies, because, as well as being the government vendor, we have commercial customers in the state. So we look at things from kind of both lenses. How do we, keep the state happy from a compliance and reporting perspective, while making this as simple as possible for the end users? And, we kind of cook that in the same pot, and we figure out what is the best strategy to go forward with.
Hey, Mo, thank you very much. There's a lot of questions when it comes to BioTrack, sometimes, especially with this integration, implementation, also with New York as well, which is where I go with this next question, right? Lots of great points there, but Colton, we've been in Florida since 2017. As you mentioned, we support Certera with their entire tech stack for their vertical operations. I like to let the audience know what we are doing to prepare our clients for BioTrack's integration, not only in Florida but also New York. As you know, every state has a different track and trace system, different flavors of it. But I believe that in Florida and New York, the instances are similar. So, like to let you expand on that, please.
Yeah, excited to see it turn on in New York. I'm sure not as excited as Mo is. We'll get there. We, um, I'm generally not a fan of this whole concept of a state track and trace system. I think it's like an incredible overhang and burden on the industry. And I think as operators, we should uniformly be advocating for self-reporting like we've had in Florida and had a multi-billion-dollar market for years, and it's worked perfectly, like we have in Arizona for what, 10 years now, that works perfectly. So, that being said, we're not always in control of writing the regs and implementing a track and trace system. I do like the approach that the BioTrack team is used on actually just providing full coverage of the API and treating the track and trace system as simply a data repository, right? Which I think if we're going to have this level of scrutiny on the industry, keeping it as simple as possible is great. And so, I know from as all of the MMTCs and the operators in other states may be tuning in or thinking about this, it's all around testing. So, we do an incredible amount of automated testing in our suite. And I think that's just the name of the game, right? And you have to work with a vendor who understands this space, who understands the nuance of it. I think, given that we deploy in 30 different states around the country, I mean, we've seen every flavor of track and trace that you can imagine. And like we've always been able in our software to, when we ship from one location, we make it appear in the other location from an internal transfer, right? Seamless transfer, right? We always keep a concept of data normalized at the company level, and we're working on that at the intercompany level so that your data flows. So like we already have full integration to the MMUR right now, and delivery holds and full automation around all that, because again, APIs are important, and as soon as Florida released the API to be able to do that, we invested in that, and save, like, I don't think you can have a faster checkout experience than what we provide right now, in Florida. So with the new track and trace system coming on, I think we're still going through our process of testing and validating the workflows and calls. And I know it's just a large project for an operator to take on, to train the staff and adjust workflows. And, it's just all about testing, writing the SOPs, running the business according to SOPs, and validating that. So
All
that's
right.
the name of the game. We've done it in lots of states.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have over 30 states. So thank you, Colton. And then Jocelyn, I know that this might not be as prevalent, but when it comes to Buddhas, your initial market, and touching base back on what you said, initial market is California. I can only assume that your plans are to expand outside of Cali. And you are very data oriented based on the fact that you worked with Headset and you have that analytics background. But based on the data, what are some of the markets that entice you the most that you plan on focusing on next? And where is Florida in that product roadmap?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, to be determined, we're listening to a lot of the community and
Mhm.
where we have a lot of connections. To jumpstart each new market, we obviously need our group of buddies that are trusted experts that have already been out in the market assessing products. This is why we're bringing on gangiers. This is why it's cannabis cup judges. So that takes time to develop that out and figure out who those people are, and then really start getting everybody on the same page in terms of an editorial guideline and how you actually want to think about going through and assessing all the nuances of a product and then writing about it. So that process, if you look, I came from the mobile space. I spent 10 years working in that industry. And so I've worked with a lot of the apps, whether it's, TripAdvisor or Yelp or Hotel Tonight, et cetera, Rotten Tomatoes. And so a lot of those apps, what they had to do to jumpstart their marketplace was first start with their early adopters. And we're following suit on that strategy. And then eventually you get that hockey stick growth where then this becomes normalized, where then consumers start to come in. Right now, if you go into the app, you're going to see that these are long form reviews. People are writing 4, 5, 6 paragraphs. They're touching on the aroma, the appearance, the flavor, the effect, all of these incredible nuances. And so with that, the next market that we go into, it really depends on a lot of factors of, well, who are the individuals in that market that are interested in helping develop this? What does that brand landscape look like? And so for us, like obviously getting out to the East Coast, New York is very attractive for that next market because there's just such a strong culture there. There's also something to be said about legacy markets like Colorado and Washington that have a ton of, both consumers and professional critics that have been in market doing this. But right now we're in a test and learn phase and we're trying to figure out, well, what should that next market be? And we tap our community. We want to go where we find that there's going to be the most interest. And quite frankly, it's coming from all around the world at this point. We're getting hit up every day saying, when is this coming to our market? And so we have to be strategic. We're a startup. And this is a really delicate thing, building a rating and review platform. And so we need to just develop that, very thoughtfully. So TBD, I don't yet have a date on Florida or New York, but we are going to start expanding into the next one at the end of this year.
Hey, great. Thank you very much. I mean, when it comes to California cannabis, like there's nothing like it in the States. I mean, you are the legacy market. A lot of things are kind of focused on California, and you do have a lot of California cannabis has those critiques, has those roots. In order to duplicate that on the East Coast, you're going to have to bring in probably some of those legacy players. But it's having those markets, the much more mature markets. You're going to have a lot more of those ganjiers and individuals that are going to be able to provide those expertise for the Buddhists in the future. So looking forward to seeing it. Thanks, Jocelyn. Mo, so when it comes to the next question, that was question 3. So question 4 we now have is going to talk about AI. No panel, tech panel is going to be complete without a question on AI. So Jocelyn, we're actually going to run it back to you again. When providing an elevated conversation around the plant and Buddhist, is there a plan to incorporate AI to assist customers on their educational and purchasing journey?
100%. Absolutely. I mean, as we know, the efficacy of an AI tool is based on the data set from which it learns, right? This is why we saw, Reddit do a $60 million annual deal with Google because of all of the content, the unique content. And so for us, when you think about that, when people are writing reviews, that these aren't one-line reviews. I like this product. That's not what this is. This is about going into all those details. And you can imagine having 4, 5, 6 paragraphs where people are touching on all those nuances for now thousands of products in just such a short period of time. You can imagine how all of that information, how we're going to be able to use AI to then serve people more relevant product recommendations, which is really like the core thesis of what we're trying to solve. When you go through the app and you log in, we ask 5 questions about what kind of consumer you are. And it's things like, what's your preferred method of consumption, your usage frequency, your preferred potency, why are you consuming, like what is your main purpose and your primary reason? And what we're trying to do is then if someone's like, I'm a daily flower consumer who likes high dose products, I use it for spiritual and medical reasons, we then want to match you with other individuals because as we know that share those preferences, because as we know, like with our endocannabinoid system, cannabis just affects all of us different based on those factors. And so we're going to be able to utilize AI to then take all of that unique content, those long form reviews, and then serve even better product recommendations through all of that. So 100%, it's absolutely something that we're going to be incorporating, just not yet at this stage of the business, as right now we feel it's really important that it's a personal recommendation versus utilizing AI at this time until we have enough data to make that really helpful for somebody.
Excellent. Hey, great answer. Thank you very much, Jocelyn. All right, Mo, similar question about AI, but when it comes, does BioTrack currently or have plans to incorporate AI into their tech? Floor is yours.
Yep. So it is in the works. We are training an AI, with the to Jocelyn's point, right? This is all about the data set that it's reading from.
Yes.
So with our Canalytics tool, we're incorporating an AI. We have other areas of the software that we're looking to also incorporate it in. But, I think, the term AI gets thrown out a lot without people fully kind of understanding. They think it just kind of does magic. And there's a level of kind of like training and teaching it, like, what is this narrow path that you want to look at? Like, how do you want it to behave? Like, so we're kind of being very thoughtful and methodical on how we're doing that, because we do want it to be something that, like, I don't know if you remember that website, like Ask Jeeves from a long time ago, but we
Yep.
want it to be so our end users can leverage our Canalytics platform, ask it a question, and it gives them the correct answer. So that's kind of where our initiative is around leveraging the AI in that direction. And we'll kind of keep the market posted as we evolve that technology.
Well, thank you. Well, real quick before I have Colton answer the same question, I just want to leave it open for the audience. If you do have a question that you'd like for us to answer, please provide it in the chat now. If not, we're going to keep rolling and go through our last question after Colton answers. But I want to make sure that we give time to answer those questions. So please do. But Colton, again, when it comes to Flourish software, how are we incorporating AI? I know that Flywheel are partnered with their inventory tech stack. They do have the ability to use AI machine learning for algorithms to forecast cannabis sales and related trends, utilizing some of that data. But what are we also doing on our end when it comes to AI and Flourish?
Yeah, it's definitely a topic that we built a machine learning algorithm to predict inventory accuracy within warehousing, like general warehouses, locations, way back in 2016.
Okay.
So we played a little with AI along the way, always, and had this top of mind. But like you guys all mentioned, you have to have a nice data set, and that's why we're so focused on collecting good data and structuring that data within our ecosystem. Currently, we have an AI-powered recommendation in the cart in our point of sale. So when you have the shopping cart open, if the customer is part of a loyalty program, we have a deep partnership with Alpine IQ. It can serve recommendations to make an upsell or recommendation like at the checkout counter or at the shop in the shopping cart. So that's where we have that operationally deployed right now. We have some partners that are innovating with some really cool AI-driven stuff on top of our API, you mentioned. We were running a proof of concept with a data company looking at forecasting and demand planning, using some machine learning, which is kind of in the broader AI terms. And that had some really promising success. I mean, we're looking at 98% accuracy on some forecasting, which is amazing. And we are years into this, actually having data sets of like sales history and product info that we can do forecasting on, which is exciting. And definitely something that we're continuing to push forward, in our roadmap and find places to innovate with it. And it is so magical. Sometimes, like I spun up a ChatGPT app on top of our help documentation because it's public, and started asking it questions around our app, and it was scarily accurate and interesting to tell people how to navigate and do things in Flourish, just with some low code, stitching things together and playing with it. So yeah, lots of fun things to play with, and and that's the exciting point I think about being at this point in our sort of technology maturity and as an organization, is we can do this fun stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Colton. I learn something new every day from my boss. All right. So the last question that I have, I'm going to tie it into a question that we got from a Q&A from a Dr. Raven Hickerson. So thank you, doctor, for throwing this question. But when it comes, it's talking about the future. So when it comes to Florida, staying on the state of Florida, the Supreme Court ruled that there's going to be a ballot initiative that's going to appear in November to vote on adult use cannabis, which is going to lead to really, really lit SLS pool parties in Miami. But we don't need to talk about that part. Looking forward to the future, and it doesn't have to be focused on the Florida's ballot. We want to talk about the predictions of where you think cannabis in the industry is headed in 2025 and beyond. But the question that Doctor put together is, if cannabis does become rescheduled instead of being descheduled, how does these adult use programs in these states continue to exist, especially without pharmacy personnel. So I'd like to actually start this out with Mo. Mo being a PharmD himself, kind of like to open that question up for you to talk about, maybe answer Doctor's Raven's questions over here, along with where you see the Florida or the overall cannabis market going in 2025.
Sure. I think he brings up a very good point, right? So a lot of times this is thrown out there about descheduling. There's a lot of considerations, right? Like if you reschedule this and it goes from a Schedule 2, meaning it's equivalent to cocaine or heroin, to a Schedule 3 or a Schedule 4, you have now opened it up to the pharmacy markets to possess and manufacture and manipulate this product. I think that's probably what's been kicked around at the federal level and inside the FDA that says, like, if we do this, we're going to trigger a big paradigm shift within this space. And I don't think they're really ready to do that. I think something that may be a little bit more probable is, so you have modified pharmacy licenses that exist for like jails and different types of institutions that allow them to operate under a specific kind of set of guidance. I think there may be some level of a rescheduling, but honestly, I think it's too far away right now. I think that the current status quo will continue to hold, which will be the medical markets evolve into adult use. I think maybe somewhere down the line, 10 years, 20 years down the line, they reschedule or they deschedule or they come up with a different classification that essentially puts cannabis in this special little category that allows the existing marketplace to continue to operate. Everybody who has a license has to go get this, modified type of license or privilege attached to their license. And the status quo kind of holds. I think, as we've seen markets go from medical to adult use, you're seeing 5x revenue, 7x revenue. With that comes a lot of tax money. You hit on the fact that this is $1 billion marketplace here for Florida as a medical market, right? So this becomes 5 billion, becomes 7 billion. Like there's no real ceiling. And as everybody kind of knows, like there's still a number of licenses that need to be issued. A lot of the existing MMTCs are not fully ramped up to where they want to be. So, I think what happens with adult use, I think in Florida, I know a lot of you people on the panel are not from Florida. I think it's going to come down to like the last 30 days of the mudslinging in terms of campaigns pro and against. That's kind of how it's always played out down here. I think if it doesn't go this time around and they don't get enough traction on the ballot, that probably
This is a clip. That's what they call a cliffhanger, I think, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, Mo, hopefully he comes back. We still have a couple minutes here, but Colton, since you're currently not on mute, why don't you take a stab at this question when it comes to
Yeah, I
the
mean,
future?
it's an incredibly interesting question, right? If we reschedule from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, like Cannabis Twitter thinks we're going to do, we could open up some really interesting complicated issues with the adult use programs around the country. I love Mo's perspective on the modified pharmacy sort of paradigm, and if we can write rules to allow adult use, stores to continue to sell product under some sort of modified, like prescription-esque type of situation. Like we all have purchase limits, generally in states, and there's purchasing, restrictions in place from the state level right now. So if we can harmonize that, I mean, there's a path to make that happen. That makes a lot of sense to me. We've with our point of sale, we've had a really strong medical deployment, like places like Virginia, where we're reporting stuff back to the pharmacy tracking, system there. Georgia, we were 30 stores into 120 store rollout. We're actually putting our point of sale into existing pharmacies around the state, and I was so excited about that because in under 6 months of doing retail sales in the state of Georgia, we were about to get access to medical cannabis to 90% of the state within a 30-minute drive, which is leaps and bounds above California, who's had a medical program since the 90s. But unfortunately, the DEA sent a letter to those pharmacies reminding them of their DEA license to schedule to dispense, and we were sorting that out still. But yeah, I mean, adult use. that's what we're all looking for, right? We're all looking for a descheduling or some sort of normalization and a lifting 280, allowing all these businesses to operate as normal businesses. And, um, I think the one thing everyone can do is build a strong brand identity and loyalty with the brand, which maybe that leads into what you could talk about, Jocelyn, because if you have raving fans that love your product, you can survive the tidal shift of regulation that could change. And you have to think like what happens if you have a dispensary in every block, right? Or what happens if we remove all restrictions and all the regulatory moats around your business, like do you still have customers that love your product, your experience, and what you're providing, and that's the one thing we all can control. So
Thanks,
that's it.
Colton. Jocelyn, kind of leave it
Yeah.
open for you, and then hopefully
I'll,
Mo, if you're still there, you can answer the rest of the questions. Leave us hanging. But
well,
Jocelyn, please.
I'll build on that. And for me, what I like to do is just kind of take a step back and look at the timelines of other industries. And I think a lot about, about thinking about like mobile. Think about the iPhone came out in the summer of 2007. And it took until about 2013, 2012, when you started to see the market. Because think about it, for those first 5 years of the iPhone coming out, you saw the influx of mobile app developers, thousands and tens of thousands of people building like similar versions of a Candy Crush, like hundreds of versions of a Candy Crush, right? And it took the market until about 2012, 2013, where you started to see it consolidate, it retract, and consumers decide which products or which apps they really wanted to invest in and use. So I think about that a lot when we're thinking about, the cannabis industry, whereas I'm based in California. I've been a part of this industry since 2018. And so when I'm looking at that timeline, when I'm thinking about what's going to be coming for 2025 and ahead, we're just now going to be hitting that tipping point where we're seeing a lot of this consolidation. We're seeing consumers decide what brands they want to invest in. And that's just a natural part of any market maturing. We saw the same thing in wine. That's why I was giving that example in the early 1980s, when you had those handful of key figures that really set the foundation for that market. We're now seeing the same thing in cannabis, right? And I think it's this combination of a lot of people who are building things that are going to help advance the industry, like taking the Gangier program. That program's 4 years old, right? Like this is very new. So, and I'm using the Gangier as an example because that's then going to help educate thousands of people, right? On and elevating the conversation. What we're doing with Buddhist is one aspect. What all these individual influencers and content creators just normalizing cannabis, that whole process is going to take 10 plus years. And so I just find that a lot of these conversations and conjecture, it's just really important to take a step back and just recognize how quickly things are actually moving. And I know it doesn't feel like it for us being in this industry, but it really is moving a lot faster than any other mature industry that we now see. And so it's just something to recognize. And we're just in that very early phase. And it's going to compound. It's going to start happening so much quicker based on everybody's efforts that they're contributing to in just normalizing cannabis as a whole.
Well, I mean, you're seeing it when it comes to legalization overall, when it comes to the states, right? You had like the initial ones with California, Oregon, up, and Washington, and now you're seeing this influx of a lot more medicinal lights, excuse me, a lot more medical states, and then those states will come into adult use very, very soon after, right? Hopefully, yeah, soon after. But you're seeing that kind of compounding effect a lot quicker now on the East Coast and in the southern states as well. So I know we have like 1 minute left here. Mo, are you still there? I know you were about
I'm
to
here. I'm
drop
here. I
us for
turned off my
something.
camera.
Okay. But yeah, we want just to make sure that we got that, you were about to say your last point. I want to grab that in there before we are able to
Yeah, I
end our
think I was
seminar
just
today.
I was getting to the point that like if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't go wreck this year, it'll probably go wreck next year. Like, that's kind of what I see kind of as a trend. Florida's kind of been it's been cooking for a while as a medical market. I think the market has demonstrated to the naysayers that like, hey, you can have an active medical cannabis market without, the bad things happening that they always kind of throw at the people that are kind of pro legalization. And I think it's kind of time for the Florida market to go adult use.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mo. Appreciate it. Glad you're able to jump back on. I don't see any other questions here, and we are approaching that 1 hour mark. So, Jocelyn, Mo, Colton, and the C Lab, thank you very much. And the audience, thank you very much for participating and hanging out with us today. We had a great time. And, to end it, I'd like to make sure that everyone stays happy, healthy, and high when appropriate. So thank you everyone for your time. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.